So let's be honest. The suppression, the systematic governmental suppression of UFOs and extraterrestrial biological entities is not about us. We take it personally. We say they're keeping us in the dark, and they are. Yeah, that's true. But that's not the goal. It's simply the byproduct of what's really going on. You see, as I'm sure it's not difficult for you to imagine, the United States doesn't like to share its toys. You see, they don't want anyone to have access or even know the location of the most dangerous technology on the planet. They don't want any other countries able to access this technology. Now, even if they did want to disclose, it's gonna be tough, because if they admit that they have these things, they're creating a national security problem. Also, if you think about it, it comes back to control. It comes back to science. That we want to have control. Whoever has the best science has the best technology. Whoever has the best technology is the one who is in control of things. And that's who the United States wants to be at all costs. And one of the ways that they've been successful in doing that is by denying abduction experiencers, by just shutting us down, shadow banning us, setting us up, doing all things to us to keep us shut down, make us look crazy. Don't believe the crazy person, crazy guy. No, I'm telling you the truth. A crazy person would have shut up by now. But we have to have good decision making, because while this is a great game for the United States government and for their technology divisions, it is a detriment to the civilian population. That's what I have an issue with, because what's going to happen is, if they're not going to voluntarily disclose, and I think they should voluntarily disclose for the sake of public safety, because if they don't, then what they're risking, and it's low odds, okay? It's low odds, but it is a possibility, and that is a catastrophic disclosure event. So an example of a catastrophic disclosure event is, say, a craft from another planet crashed into a middle school on a Thursday at 2 p.m. in a major town. What would be the response? Well, whatever the response is, it will not be an informed one. You see, we have people like Michio Kaku, who advise abductees, who, by the way, he's never spoken to, studied abductions or abductees, our experiences, nothing, but wants to give us advice on how to prove our abductions. And his suggestion is to steal something from the ship. This is the last thing you should do, just so you know, as a person who is an experienced abduction experiencer. Don't take anything. Don't grab anything. Don't stick anything in your pockets. You don't know what you're grabbing. Okay? You don't know what you're grabbing. It could be something that's a pathogen or contagion. It could be radioactive. It could be corrosive. You don't know what you're doing, so don't do anything. Michio Kaku saying that on News Nation, of all places. This is one of the most reckless comments I ever heard. It was just so mocking, and yet also, at the same time, misinforming and disinforming the public at large about this topic. That same philosophy actually is why the United States is the leader in this field, because there was an episode that happened in Mexico. So in Mexico, I believe this happened in the 1980s, but there was a crash that happened in Mexico that the United States picked up on their instrumentation. And they reached out to the Mexican military and they asked them if they needed help in the recovery of this crashed object. Everybody kind of silently pretending it was a plane crash. Well, the Mexican military thanked them but declined their offer. and politely declined. And the United States started surveilling that operation from satellites. And what they saw were the military come out with trucks and jeeps and a flatbed, and that these men had apparently gotten out and walked very close to the craft and had put their hand on it and were touching it and touching debris. And the next thing you know, everything in the picture stopped moving. So the United States responds by sending out their team of the Night Stalkers, who go out and recover these things, who show up in full hazmat gear, who show up with weapons, who show up with the correct equipment, who show up with the right amount of manpower, everything that they need, because they are experienced. Yeah. And what they saw when they got there was that all of these Mexican soldiers were dead, stone dead to the last man in place. So they cleaned up the site, removed the vehicle, and got back over the border and lived to tell the tale. You see, this is the difference between an uninformed response and an educated and experienced response. And that's the point of this video today. So, what I feel like we need to do, since the government will not disclose to us and it compromises our safety in the situation of a civil emergency per se, catastrophic disclosure, then it is up to us to inform ourselves and create a UAP ET emergency reaction plan in case things do go wrong and we are the ones left holding the bag.
Action Plan, codename Guardian. This document, 10098999701, is the recorded civilian UAP-ET action plan for best practices and safety standards for unexpected interaction or contact. The main premise, and the plan's slogan reduced down for brevity, should be record, run, report. Record, if it is deemed safe to get clear video, still frames, and a description of events. Run. After a brief recording, immediately leave the area. Only when you can no longer see the object should you halt evacuation. Report. Post online to a verified account in every available media and, example given, hashtag government emergency UFO as a suggestion to alert the authorities. Levels of contact. Sight. Seeing a suspected UAP in the sky, lurking, hovering at low altitude, especially over populated areas, should be reported. This is not just a safety issue for people on the ground, but an air traffic safety issue as well. Until we know who they are and what they are doing, and that they have the informed permission of the U.S. government, they should not be around people. Conversely, people should also not be around them. If a UAP is hovering in a neighborhood, citizens are to record it, evacuate the area, and report. Remember, being within eyeshot of a UAP is too close. Landing. If you see a landed UFO, do not approach it. Immediately evacuate the area and do not return until the all clear is given by the government through public announcement. Record if possible, but in either case, evacuate and report to hashtag government emergency UFO and the local authorities. Do not attempt to make contact. If any beings attempt to make contact with you, move from the area as quickly as possible and report these beings to the aforementioned tag with a brief description. Do not engage exobiological entities in either a hostile or friendly way. Rather, quickly remove yourself from the area at once. Warn everyone in the vicinity to seek safety. Once away from the threat, call local authorities, post any evidence at Government Emergency UFO, along with any helpful information, and advise all others in the area to avoid the landing site and the beings themselves. Section 2. This is really the most important one. In the event of a crashed UAP, In the event of a suspected crashed UAP, call the police department, the fire department, and contact Government Emergency UFO, subject line crash, and evacuate as many people from the area as possible. Imperative: do not inhale fumes from a burning craft. Cover your nose, mouth, and skin, and then shower, change, and discard or quarantine clothing as soon as possible to avoid contamination. Do not touch pieces of the wreckage or any debris if possible. All wreckage and debris should be treated as a biosafety level 4 biohazard, with precautionary hazmat decontamination measures taken and arranged before encountering the site. Debris may or will contain, but are not limited to, the following deadly hazards: corrosives, toxins, radiation, and biological contamination. Do not try to keep a piece of the craft as a souvenir or as evidence. Even the smallest piece of debris could be carrying microbes or pathogens never encountered on the planet, to which we would have no resistance. The effects of such a seemingly small act could have far-reaching consequences, perhaps even on a global scale. Anyone who has been near the debris or in contact with the debris must be medically cleared by military personnel with a physical, radiation testing, biological testing, and search for any materials on their person, clothing, etc. Any anomalous readings will necessitate quarantine until further evaluation can be done to determine if the subject is a health threat to the community. Attempted removal of a piece of debris from a UAP crash site will be met with lethal force. Do not come into physical contact with exobiological beings for any reason. In the event of a crash, there may be injured but still living beings around the craft. It is often the first instinct of humans to wish to help. Do not approach them or attempt to administer any type of ambulatory services or aid. While a noble instinct, there is nothing of any practical merit to be gained by such an endeavor, while the practical guarantee of catastrophe of such an act is certain. The physiology of exobiological entities are so foreign, as are the potential microbes and pathogens they may be carrying, that the risk compared to any type of benefit gained makes this a completely forbidden act for the sake of utmost caution and safety of the community. Willful violation of this protocol can result in not only quarantine for an indefinite period pending medical evaluation, but can result in the use of lethal force at the time of the attempt, if deemed necessary. Do not touch or pick up any body parts which may be around the crash or the victims. Avoid contacting or being in the presence of fluids or liquids associated with the crash or of any potential victims at all costs. Attempted removal of any body part from a crashed UAP site shall be met with lethal force. Any clothing that contacts a potentially hazardous substance in connection with the UAP crash site shall be removed immediately, quarantined, and medically bagged for retrieval, study, and disposal by military personnel. By publicly disseminating these protocols, the document now known as 10098999701, which is the Recorded Civilian UAP ET Action Plan for Best Practices and Safety Standards for Unexpected Interaction or Contact with UAPs or exobiological entities under any circumstances or context, will create a safer community, a more informed community, and foster trust and cooperation between the people and the government which serves and represents them for the safety and well-being of all concerned. These are my recommendations to the Senate UAP Task Force Oversight Committee on Disclosure, the Department of Defense, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation on the matter of public training protocols of these subject matters being introduced to the public through surreptitious means. Respectfully submitted, U.S. civilian scientist, UAP, and exobiological consultant.
So, what do you think? I think this could be very easily introduced as a joke, as a prank, don't you? And disseminate this out to society. And even though they don't believe in it, they would still have read it anyway and still have the knowledge just in case something did happen. I think this type of proactive planning on the part of the citizens of this country and of other countries is of utmost importance to protecting ourselves from what we don't know. Thank you for joining me. I'm RL Poole.